Okay.
So we're going to start introducing each other. This is our Asian Supervisors Network meeting, and we meet every month, and our goal is to bring visibility to coaching supervision in Asia. This is open to anybody who wants to attend, but our goal is that we have people understanding what is coaching supervision, how it works, and learning from different colleagues in these free monthly sessions that are open to anybody all over the world. And it's a good time for Asia, but maybe not good for people in Europe. So we have people like Michel who make a big effort to be here at 5 in the morning and before 4 in the morning. So thank you, Michel, for your commitment at the beginning of the network a couple of years ago. So now that we give a little bit of background for people who are here for the first time, Janine, do you want to say hi?
Yes, thank you, Damian. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm actually on the lands of the Wathaurong people, who are part of the Kulin Nation, which is down in Victoria in Australia. So I pay my respects to the elders past and present and to your elders across the lands and seas. And Michelle, I am so super impressed with you turning up at this time every month. So I'm very grateful to be here. Nice to see everybody.
So we're asking everybody to say hi and say your name or where you're calling from and one thing you want to say about you. Who want to go next?
Hi, I'm Dharmesh and I'm from Bangalore in India, and great to be here in this forum, and very happy to kind of have Michel again amongst us. So thank you, Michel.
Thanks.
Jeff Hasenfratz from originally from the United States, but living in Shanghai many years. I'm grateful for the cool weather in Shanghai at the moment. Normally it's hot and sticky. Good to be here, and thank you, Damian, for continuing to convene us.
I could go next. Hi, I'm Sim Chu from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. I'm very grateful that it's been raining, so my plants are growing and flourishing. So I'm grateful for Michel, who's always been coming so early for us, and Damian, who has always set this up for the Asian network, and to see all the others for not from Asia as well. Thank you.
Hi, I can go next. I'm Diana. I'm in Mexico City, and I'm very happy to be here this late at night. Hi, yeah, Damian.
It's pretty late. It's very late for her. It's 10 p.m. So. Yeah.
Thank you, Damian.
Alex, do you want to go next?
Oh, am I the last?
No,
yeah.
No.
Okay, Alex calling in from Seoul, Korea. Nice meeting you all. And yeah, I mean, this is great that, I can join this really meaningful dialogue when I have time. So thank you, Damian. Thank you, Michel. And thank you for keep this going.
Thank you for coming back. Alex, like Dharmesh, have done presentations in the past. Janine too. We're asking Herman to do something in the future. And everybody's welcome because this is a community where everybody shares. So Cookie, maybe you in the future, maybe something on intercultural, one of your specialties. You want to say hi?
Sure, I'm very glad I got your email with the change of the address, because I always either get confused with the time or get confused with the Zoom invitation. But so I lived almost 19 years in Asia, over 5.5 in Japan, and over 13 in China, all over China. I worked in the mining industry and did trainings as well. And it's a big part of my heart, one of my identities. So I'm very thankful that I can join. I'm right now in Portland, Oregon. We had 115 degrees, which is 49 degrees Celsius, which was totally unbearable. So we're looking for rain. So if you have some rain in Singapore, you can send over. We'd be very happy. I presume you're also very hot, Damian, over there in Los Angeles.
Yes, it is, but not as bad as where you are. But it's not very common, that weather in that reason.
Well, there's no air conditioning here, so that's the problem. Anyway, so thank you.
Great to have you here, Cookie. Herman, do you want to go next?
Yeah, just say hello. I'm Herman from Singapore. Been here 38
Herman.
years. Hi, Cookie. Starting to think about relocating to the West Coast, but after hearing the terrible weather that you're having, maybe it's better to stay here. I always thought it was hot in, here in Singapore and Malaysia, but compared to what you guys are having, I think we're quite tolerable. So anyway, it's nice to see you all.
Great to
And
have you.
thanks to Damian again for putting this together.
No, I am glad. What is really inspiring for me is having people from so many countries represented. We're having this call from France, Australia, China, Singapore, Korea, South Korea, India, Malaysia, Indonesia with Danny, the United States. So this is really what we want to create, and we want to create a learning community. Also Mexico, and we had Gerardo join us from Uruguay. So I love that. All over the world is covered here. So Danny, do you want to say hi? We're just saying hi, where you're calling from, and one thing you want to say about you, Danny, if you want to do that. I don't think he's hearing us. If Pascal, do you want to go next?
Yes, hi everyone, and thank you, Damian, for organizing that. It's not always easy to get the right Zoom and the right day and the right time, but I'm very happy to be here today and to see many of people I know. So I'm based in Singapore. I've been based in Singapore for 11 years, and as you can all hear, I'm French.
So great to have you here. And I think that there are a couple of more people who are not on the camera, but since we need to move on because we need to start with the session, Michel, I think it's a perfect timing at the 10 minutes after the hour to start and jump into the presentation. Supervision of Supervision. It's a topic that Michel, what I want to say about Michel, to introduce him, he's one of the pioneers of coaching supervision worldwide. He is the author of a few books on coaching and coaching supervision. And he has been very involved with the Global Coaching Supervisors Network since the beginning of the Americas Coaching Supervisors Network, and in this Asian Supervisors Network, I know that his heart is also in Asia. So it's great to have you here.
Thanks. Yeah, so I am French. I live in Paris. And also my partner in life is Chinese. She is from Shenyang in the north of China. And she doesn't speak French and I don't speak Chinese. So we have an interesting conversation every day. So I'm going to start on the supervision of supervision. The plan is to show you a few slides about what we do in Europe about supervision of supervision. And then let you think and discuss in breakout rooms. And then after that, try to find some new elements about supervision of supervision. So let me share my screen. So supervision of supervision. So first question is why? So in Europe, we have a strong situation, which is that we have a lot of internal supervisors, of internal coaches, I mean, in enterprises, and more and more internal supervisors. So as internal coaches and internal supervisors are like fishes in the same bowl, in fact, they don't know if the water in the bowl is dirty or clean. So at some point of time, supervisors have to be supervised. But this is, I would say, a necessity, and now sponsors realize that it's an absolute necessity. Second reason is that we have an expression here, which is it's difficult to make your bed if you stay in it, which means that the coachee needs a coach to explore their blind spots, and a coach needs a supervisor to explore their blind spots. And in the same way, the supervisor also has blind spots, and they need a supervisor of supervisor. So that's just, I would say, logic. And the third reason is that in Europe, we have a code of ethics, which I would say force, encourage, or I don't know. Well, it's more or less mandatory for a supervisor to be supervised. So I think that in the US or in Asia, the situation is different because the code of ethics of ICF does not have the same article. So we have also a big network of supervisors called GSN. And within GSN, we have a number of groups devoted to research. And by the way, I am in charge of organizing research within GSN. And one of the group is about supervision of supervision. So there are about 15 supervisors involved in that research. And the one who are in red form a subgroup. And you see Damian is part of that subgroup. In that subgroup, we do action research. So we try to gain a better understanding of what is supervision of supervision by doing supervision of supervision. The timetable is, all that started in 2017. We have already published 4 papers in diverse magazines or places. And we continue to try to find new elements by doing supervision of supervision. And I have to admit, a lot of difficulty to progress.
Michel, I shared in the chat room the paper that we wrote in 2017. So if anybody want to read some of the original work that we have done, that will be available for people.
Yeah. One of the paper is about the results of a survey that we've done in 2018. And we got about 120 answers, and supervisors and supervisors of supervisors. And so I'm not going to go into the details of that survey, but just give you the rough idea of the results. So what we have discovered so far is that we are not sure if supervision of supervision needs specific competencies in addition to the framework, the existing framework. It's difficult to define specific competencies. What we've seen from the survey and from experience is that there is much more focus on ethics, on complexity. In fact, what is complexity? Why is it complex? How can we cope with complexity? It's very, very clear that we are discussing about cases that need systemic skills. And also there is more focus on intrapersonal functioning. So that's what we've discovered. But there is no real difference with supervision, except that maybe as we share the knowledge of supervision, there is something special in the relationship. But yet we have not been able to really define what is that difference. Of course, as between supervisors, we are experienced, we can have a positive and fruitful discussion about emerging needs like team coaching, organizational coaching, things like that. I mean, there are a lot of new forms of coaching that might need some more intelligence on the side of supervisors. The last question was, is it necessary to create a training for supervision of supervision? And the answer is not sure. I mean, of course, it would provide some business to some supervisors, but I mean, yeah, it's not really. At the moment, we have not yet defined what is exactly supervision of supervision and what is really specific. What are the specific competencies and things that we do? And so it's difficult to outline what would be a training for supervision of supervision. I don't know what's your opinion, Damian. I mean, I try to, because you are part of the game, so maybe you have something to say.
No, we have been trying to figure out, to think about that. What is, if there is like people who have been trained as a supervisor and trying to differentiate the differences between coaching and supervision. And we are able to define many, but between supervision and supervision of supervision, and this is a question for everybody here too, what do you think may be the differences? Like what Michel was talking about, the level of complexity. We are working with more systems. I am particularly interested in the relationship, like in the 7-9 model. There is not enough emphasis for me, for my own judgment, or in between the supervisor and the client. We work with the system coach, client, coach, supervisor, and the overall system, but we may not spend enough time, maybe as part of number 6, when we talk about the supervisor and what the supervisor reaction, what is happening not only with the coach in the here and now, but also with the client. So here there is one more level, is what happened to the supervisor of the supervisor when the supervisor is bringing a case or a situation working with a coach, where there are many stakeholders involved and engaged, and how to manage all of these relationships. So I think that may be one of the differences, Michel, that I'm interested in researching more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. I mean, Peter Hawkins has defined something which is called 6A, which is fantasies that the supervisor has about the client and its and their system. And I mean, here in Europe, we try to reflect on that and see, because really for a supervisor of supervisors, the client is something very, very mysterious. In fact, okay, so that's where we are. I think that, I mean, you see, it's a lot of effort, and all that is summarized on one slide, which has a very limited content. But so what I propose is that you go into breakout rooms by groups of 4 during let's say 20 minutes. And the question, yeah, no, 15 minutes, in fact, yeah, so 15 minutes. And the question is the following. You are all supervisors or you have been trained to supervision, or you are supervised. And what would be your questions to a supervisor of your supervision? What would you address there?
In case that we have somebody here who is not a supervisor, what can be an alternative question, Michel, for the participants who are not supervisors?
Well, an alternative question would be that do they think that supervision of supervision is really needed, or that something like that? Yeah.
Or whatever want to share, whatever question want to answer. Okay,
Yeah.
very open-ended. Okay, so let's get everybody to go to. We have groups of 4. How long do you want, Michel, to be? People.
Well, I said 15 minutes, so
Okay,
that we can
great.
have a discussion after.
Okay, and do you want to be in one of the rooms?
No, I'm going to grab a coffee.
Okay, okay. So
I understand that it's 5 o'clock here. No, 5 something. I'm still in the clouds.
no, I understand. Get your coffee. I would join one of the rooms, but I think I will be an observer. Okay, let me stop recording. Okay, so let's hear, Michel asked me to facilitate briefly the conversation you had, and then he's going to present a case study, like a case, an example of supervision. So I hope that you have a chance to talk to each other and get to know each other, because it's one of our goals here, and you get to meet colleagues from all over the world. So who would like to start sharing? What was your conversation? Any comments, reactions, observations, questions? Who would like to start?
Yeah, I'll happily go in. So in our group, I think we ended up picking up much more on, whilst we said the 7i model probably would be used the same way, substituting, coachee for supervisor all the way through. There would be a lot more emphasis on the systemic aspects, and then we would really explore that becoming more fine-tuned. So rather than simply saying it's, identifying the system or saying it's systems within systems, it would be looking much more closely at the dimensions and the parameters of each system and what's happening there, maybe through a cultural dimension or gender dimensions or whatever else it might be happening that's affecting how that system plays through, or the systems play through and with each other.
Thank you, Jeff. And do you know some supervisors, they have 2 different supervisors, one to supervise the supervision and one to supervise their coaching. Because as a supervisor, you may have coaching clients and supervision clients, and you may work with 2 different people to do these 2 different activities. So we want to invite you to pay attention to that. And in that process, see when you are receiving supervision as a supervisor, if you see any differences than when you are receiving supervision as a coach. No, that requires some complexity. In your group was also Cookie and Yves. Pascal, anything that you want to add? Anybody? No? So should we move to Herman and Jeff? Anything that you want to share?
Jeff, do you want to take the lead?
Sure, Herman, thank you. I correct me if I'm wrong here, Herman. I think we were all over the map, actually. We spent a bit of time, we haven't talked in a while, so Herman and I are friends, so we spent a bit of time getting caught up, which I think you said was one of the goals here, so that's good. Tick that box. I think where we came out, one of the points at least was that for this concept, I mean, there are a lot of interesting concepts out there, including this one, and for it to have legs kind of going forward and people to be drawn into it, we sensed that it needed to be practical. And we were having a bit of a hard time, at least I was, getting my mind around, how this could work. One of the things we did talk about was just what you pointed to, I think a minute ago, Damian. Or I raised the point. So when I'm with my supervisor, do I tend to bring questions that have to do with my supervision of clients or my coaching of clients? And I realized that I tend to bring more questions about when I have my coach's hat on. In the moment right now, what I'm realizing is that when I've brought questions about when I have my supervisor's hat on, It's probably more about how to become a better supervisor. Are there some techniques? Are there some practices or something in, say, therapeutic supervision, that realm that could be useful to me? And since my supervisor also has that hat, we can have that conversation. Herman, that's what I picked up. Yourself?
Okay. I know you've done a great job of summarizing what we talked about. I'll just add one thing that was not on the agenda that we were supposed to talk about, which was our love of group supervision as opposed to individual supervision and our experience with that. And just giving a shout out to Damian, who has going to start a group supervision program for Asia, just so that it's a convenient time for us here in Asia. And that's starting at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be one of the only 3. I mean, CSA is going to have one, Damian's got one, and I think Joe Birch said to me that she was going to start one soon, but that one hasn't started yet. And so just a shout out to Damian for focusing in on that.
Yeah, we really want to support everybody. And Sunny is now doing the program, the current one, the cohort 1. The Asian will be cohort 2. So everybody's invited. If you're interested, let me know later. We can give you the information. And thank you, Herman, for that comment. And we need to move on because we still want to hear Michel's case. So Danny, Darmes, Diane, Sunny, anything you want to share in your group that to discuss? Any volunteer? One of you?
I thought Dharmesh was going to volunteer, but
Darmesh,
he went off.
Well, I can. I mean, both of us can share. I mean,
Okay, you go first.
Okay.
We're not seeing you for some reason, Darmesh.
Yeah, no, I have to be off video for something.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. So what we discussed was interesting because in terms of the question that perhaps I would bring into the whole supervision would be more about processing, and that's like taking further Jeff's point, which he mentioned about wearing that hat of the supervisor in the coaching session or in the supervision session. What's happening to me as a supervisor? I think I would be more interested in bringing those questions up into my supervision session as a supervisor. So, did I look at all the I's properly? Did I miss one of the I? Did I do something different? Or, those kind of questions. I think that was one point that we said, probably to directly answer Michel's question, that is something that we can probably bring up. Yeah. Sunny, you want to add something onto it?
Yeah, we kind of got to a point of, we talked about, does the supervisor of the supervision have a supervisor? It could be very esoteric. We just keep going out with more and more supervisors. It was kind of ridiculous, but I shared with them, Damian, what happened this morning in class, that there was a demonstration that Lily was in group supervision, and I noticed that she did something that she didn't even realize she was doing. And she said, I've got to go back and look at the tape because I didn't know. And so I wondered whether that's one of the roles of the supervisor of supervision, someone doing supervision, because you're so in it, that you don't see the broader perspective or even individual things that you do. Could be helpful. If we were a group observing, not criticizing or critiquing, but just giving feedback. And that's because we don't want to get into a hierarchy thing. We talked about that in our group too, that we had to be kind of flat, shoulder to shoulder. So even the supervisor of the supervisor is not looking down or, critiquing, but supporting that sort of ripple effect in the system.
Thank you, Sunny. And by the way, Sunny is doing our presentation next month. And you're going to be on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So don't miss it. It's going to be very interesting. And she did that for the America Coaching Supervisors Network, and I was very successful. Everybody loves Sunny, so I hope that everybody can make it next month. Okay, let's go to the last group. Alex, Gerardo, Sinjo, and Sravan. One of you, anything else that we have not discussed yet?
Sinjo.
Okay, I'll speak initially for the group. One of the things that we talked about was how am I showing out as a supervisor, and how am I partnering in reflective practice, and aspects of vulnerability was also mentioned, and how are we in the being of our being, in supporting our supervisees. I also noticed one more thing I didn't quite say, but for me was the psychodynamics aspects, like parallel processes or transference, and what's happening to ourselves, and how are we noticing what's happening to ourselves as a supervisor in a supervision session. One key thing was also mentioned by one of the group members is noticing when you actually may be coaching instead of supervising. So that's one, and also looking at the process. How is the process? How are we supporting the process? That's one of the things was mentioned. I'd like to add.
That's a really good question, Sinjo. And Michel, we never thought about that question. That is a really very interesting piece of research. I have not seen that anywhere, how to distinguish if we are going from supervision to coaching in a session.
Can you reformulate the question? So in a research form? Sim?
One question was, how are we showing up sometimes as a supervisor, or are we showing up as a coach? That means you're putting on the coaching hat rather than the supervision hat. Mm-hmm. That's one dimension. And there's one other dimension was, what aspect of SOS supervision of supervision is mentoring? Is there an element of mentoring in that?
Yeah,
I love these questions. These are really
interesting. Yeah. Mm.
It's interesting that today in the group supervision program, we're talking that the group supervisor, when you have coaches who are just finished training and start coaching, it's a very different way to supervise than if you're supervising very experienced coaches. And that's applied to group and individuals. As a supervisor of a brand new coach, it's very different than supervising a very experienced coach. So that's another area also for exploration. So Michel, any reactions from everybody's comments?
No, not really. I mean, I think, the case will bring some more insight about what supervision of supervision is. I mean, maybe I can show the case on which, by the way, I am the supervisor of supervisors. So I'm going to show you the case so that you have an idea of what's going on in that activity. So it looks complicated, but it's not, in fact. So on the right side, there is a client, a big company, and their request for, it's an organizational coaching. The request is to change their mindset for security. At the moment, they have 30 to 40 fatal casualties per year, and they want to reduce that to 0. So they have asked a group of coaches, 5 coaches, to help them to work on that. And it's a big contract. It's a $2 million contract with a lot of individual coaching and team coaching. And so there are 5 coaches. The one on the top, Bernard, is taking care of the CEO. Alain and Lucy are taking care of the executive team, the leadership team, and there are 3 more coaches taking care of the other management levels. They all have their own supervisor, and there is a supervisor supervising the group of coaches or the team of coaches. The supervisor is Anne, and I am the supervisor of supervisor. See the situation? And so currently we have a problem, I would say, which is that the CEO has gave a call 3 weeks ago to Bernard, telling him, we don't like Lucy, get rid of Lucy. We don't want to see her again. And so, of course, I mean, it's a big issue for the team. Should they accept? Should they refuse? How to do that? I mean, and so they have Anne, the supervisor, to help them to reflect about that. And I already had 2 sessions with Anne about that, and what kind of I mean, Anne's problem is that she is a feminist, so of course the situation is triggering in her some really strong emotions like anger and things like that. And I work with Anne to, in fact, to step back and reflect instead of being the slave of her emotions. Any comments? And this is a real situation. I am currently the supervisor of supervisor.
The question for that come up with the case is, what did you do, Michel, as a supervisor or supervisor? What were your conversations? What happened in your session with Anne?
Well, I mean, what I try to do is to help Anne to stay in to be a supervisor and not to be a feminist or a coach or a mentor. Or you see, that's my effort. I mean, I'm calling for professionalism. I mean, because she sometimes is really well,
just angry.
Yeah, and so so really this is what I do, and so it's you know, I remember that the coach of Ballesteros, you know, that the golf champion, the Ballesteros, I mean, some 1 or 2 decades ago, he said that the only thing I do with my champion is sometimes to say, calm down. This is exactly what I do with Anne. But of course, I mean, we have long sessions, and of course, what we do is to look at the situation in a systemic way and try to understand what are the relationships, what is at stake for each of the players. Try really to understand the dynamics of the system. That's how I do it. It's not just and calm down. It's looking at the system as a whole and try to understand how it functions.
Sunny, you have a question?
Yes, Michel, I couldn't tell from your diagram, but is Anne the only supervisor coach in the system there that is a woman?
No, I'm going to. The coach, the coach have their own supervisor because they are not only on that case, and so they have what we call their usual supervisor. And in fact, 4 of the 5 supervisors are women.
Okay.
all
I
these
was just,
supervisors.
I mean, setting aside Anne's emotional responses, were any of the issues that she brought up legitimate ones?
Anne, you mean?
Yes.
Well, Anne is looking at I mean, Anne is supervising a team of coaches. So I don't understand your question, in fact.
Okay, you had mentioned that she's a quote unquote feminist and she's
Yeah.
very emotional. That's what I understood or got from what you said.
That's true,
And,
yeah.
and I'm saying for you as the supervisor of the supervisors, even though, or I won't say even though, because Anne was emotional and as you termed a feminist, that doesn't for me mean that she didn't bring up some legitimate issues.
Of course, she brings legitimate issues. I mean, feminist is what she says about herself. So I'm not inventing anything. It's not a judgment. It's just telling what she says about herself. And she's a human person, so she has emotion and opinions and everything like that. I mean, so the issues that she brings are completely legitimate. I mean, that's because there are a lot of issues in the system, in fact.
Because the CEO wanting to get rid of this one coach could be an emotional thing too. I don't know what the situation is.
That's exactly what we discussed, is the reason why, because from what we have analyzed, I mean, because we have analyzed what the coaches are doing in detail, we have not been able to identify anything wrong in what Lucy is doing. She's a high-level professional, very clever, and I mean, there is nothing that she has done wrong in terms of coaching. So the position of the CEO and his team is I mean, is not, there is no factual foundation. They just don't like her. Unfortunately, the contract that the team has established is not telling what to do in that case. So we are in kind of, there is also a contractual difficulty that we have to treat.
So what is interesting here, I think, shows for everyone the complexity of the supervision of supervision. And there are a couple of things that unfortunately we don't have here now more time to explore, but as interesting topics. One is the topic that Sunny is bringing of gender. What are the gender issues in the culture of this organization? And if there is anything around that also how to deal with systemically that's happening in the company, in the organization, and then how is that playing in the system of the coaches and the team of the coaches working together. And the other piece is related to systemically the company who hire all of these coaches, the supervisor and the supervisor of the supervisor, Michel, that company also has probably something to say about what the CEO wants that goes beyond the analysis and understanding that you can do. But from what I'm hearing, Michel, in your case, there are two key elements. One is the systemic analysis and understanding and looking at places that you may not do by yourself. And the other piece is managing the emotions, all of the emotional reactions that the supervisor is having as a result of working in the system. Do you think that that is a good way to look into it?
Yeah. Also, an element is what I know. I don't know personally the CEO, of course. I mean, but what the coaches say about the CEO is that compared to the CEO, Trump is an amateur in terms of dominance.
So we need to wrap up because we are a couple of minutes beyond the hour. But maybe we can go around really fast. You want to stop sharing? Thank you. Briefly, one sentence, everybody. Just share one thing you learned from this case, something that you're present to, something you want to say very short in one sentence to wrap up the session today.
Maybe quickly, about the case, it's funny because the subject of the coaching is about no more casualty. And the way you express, we don't want to see Lucy anymore. It's like there's a casualty in the coach group.
Great analysis. That's really smart. Thank you for sharing that. Really, really wise. That is a great analysis. This is the lovely part of our work as supervisors of supervisors, being able to see that, systemically.
Exactly, yeah.
Great point.
Because the group here is acting as supervisor of supervisor, yeah.
For me, I like the concept very much. I forget which colleague brought it up of when I'm in supervision, am I showing up as, or when I'm supervising someone, am I showing up as a supervisor more or as a coach more, or what situations those two things show up?
For me, when Michel shared the case, it's like the group dynamics and the corporate culture and interpersonal relationships may be adding complexities in being supervision of the supervision.
For me, I feel that organizational coaching, there are many layers, many complexities, and the supervisor of the supervisors need to, the job become more complex, not only looking the style of the supervisor, but also to open up that, unpack the different layers of complexity and to look in totality rather than a specific issue.
I might just add on, and I'm sorry, Shraban? I really wanted to share something similar, that it's complex, there are layers, and what I'm hearing again is that supervision is a wonderful way to continue to deepen our learning, to develop our skills as a coach, to develop our skills as a supervisor, to again become supervised by a supervisor who will potentially also need to be supervised as well. So it's a beautiful way of learning and developing. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Thank you, Damian.
Coaching is a never-ending story. So we don't know, we know where it begins, we don't know where we'll finish. And when it's a matter of reflecting and thinking, and it's great because we grow and we are more professional, and that's our job. That's one reflection.
Thank you, Gerardo. Thank you for joining from Uruguay. This is the other extreme. It's 1 a.m. there. So like 1 a.m. in Uruguay, 5 a.m. in France. So thank you for staying till late. And Sunny, anything you want to say before we go? I think you're the last.
I have a quick question for Michel. When you proposed this contract, did the client actually ask for the supervisor, or did you propose it to them, the configuration?
Well, the configuration of coaches and the supervisor and it's part of the contract.
Right, but
I'm paid with the company money.
But you proposed that configuration. They didn't come up with it.
Yeah, we proposed it. Yeah.
Yeah, most clients don't have that sophistication. I don't think to for that. Cookie, we didn't hear from you.
So one thing I'd like to add to what Gerardo and Janine said is the verb stretch, to stretch, because the whole supervisor, and as Sunny said, I also mentioned in our group, who's going to supervise the supervisor of the supervision. But it's important for us to look at ourselves and to be able to expand and to have an umbrella vision of what's going on. So, and to hearing.
Okay. And Danny, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I think that's what Cookies mentioned is kind of is resonating with me. So even the supervisors of the supervisors is a human being, right? Has a blind spot as well. So needs somebody else, you see, not the mirror, to check. I
You're
think
right.
so. That's I put a circle here. In the middle is the supervisor. Then another circle is the supervisor. Another circle is the supervisor or the coach. Another circle is the client. So then this is kind of the ripple effects, as mentioned by Sunny during the breakout.
But hopefully there are a lot of parallel processes which remind us that something's going wrong. So,
Thank you, Michel.
Yeah,
Everybody share? Did we miss anybody? Dharmesh, did you share?
Yeah, I just want to kind of just say that I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around the complexity that presents, but it's a beautiful thing because, like Gerardo said, I think the self-discovery aspect is a never-ending journey, and this is you're helping each other discover layers and layers of yourself and your work.
So I apologize for being longer today, running the program a little bit longer. Michel, anything you want to say to close?
Yeah, I was very happy to deliver that that session, and I'm always happy to be here.
Thank you.
And don't miss next month. We have Sunny. Sunny, thank you for accepting the invitation to this session for next month on diversity. And if you know anybody, please invite them to join us next month. And if you want to save the date for next year, the coaching conference that we are organizing for supervisors going to be in Hawaii. So if anybody is available and interested, 28, 29, and 30 of April, 2021. And the call for proposal is coming up next week. So I would love you to invite you to present. So if anybody is interested in that opportunity, I want to invite you to consider coming and presenting for the conference because the presenters are the supervisors in the communities. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Michel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
See you soon.
Michel,
Take care.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.